Picture this. It is a cold January morning in 1961. Families in Goldsboro, North Carolina are just starting their day. Children getting ready for school, parents brewing coffee, farmers checking on their livestock. None of them know that high above their heads, 8 airmen are fighting for their lives in a crippled B-52 bomber. And none of them know that in just minutes, their entire world could cease to exist. This is the story of the day America almost accidentally destroyed itself. Major Walter Scott Tulloch was the pilot that morning, a seasoned airman with a wife and children waiting for him back home. His mission seemed routine, a nuclear deterrent patrol, part of the constant chess game America played with the Soviet Union. But something was terribly wrong. Fuel was gushing from his aircraft at an alarming rate. The massive bomber, loaded with 2 hydrogen bombs, was becoming uncontrollable. Imagine the terror in that cockpit. 8 men, thousands of feet above innocent civilians, knowing they carried enough destructive power to erase entire cities. Tulloch tried everything to save his aircraft, but physics does not negotiate. The fuel leak worsened. The plane began breaking apart mid-air. Bail out! Bail out! The order that every airman dreads. In those final moments, as the crew prepared to jump into the freezing darkness, they knew they were abandoning something unthinkable. 2 Mark 39 hydrogen bombs, each one 250 times more powerful than the bomb that devastated Hiroshima. 3 crew members never made it out. They died as heroes, staying with their aircraft to the end. But their sacrifice could not prevent what happened next. Far below, in the quiet farmland around Goldsboro, something was falling from the sky. Not just debris from a crashed plane, but 2 of the most powerful weapons ever created by human hands, each bomb carrying 3.8 megatons of destructive force. To put that in perspective, the bomb that killed over 100,000 people in Hiroshima was just 15 kilotons. These bombs were monsters by comparison. The first bomb's parachute deployed. It drifted down like some apocalyptic seed, landing relatively intact in a field. Farmers would later discover this instrument of unimaginable destruction sitting quietly among their crops, as if it belonged there. The second bomb was not so gentle. Its parachute failed. It slammed into the muddy earth at terminal velocity, burying itself 180 feet deep. The impact was so violent that pieces of the bomb scattered across the countryside. Here is where this story becomes truly terrifying. In 2013, declassified documents revealed the horrifying truth that the government had hidden for over 50 years. We did not just avoid disaster that day. We missed it by the thickness of a single electrical switch. A nuclear safety supervisor examined the bomb that landed intact. His report was chilling. 3 of the bomb's 4 safety switches had automatically activated during the fall. The firing sequence had begun. Only one switch, the manual arm switch, prevented a nuclear detonation over American soil. Think about that for a moment. One switch. One tiny component standing between normalcy and absolute catastrophe. If that switch had failed, if that last safety measure had not held, the explosion would have been beyond comprehension. The immediate fireball alone would have vaporized everything within 6 miles. Goldsboro would have simply ceased to exist. The blast would have flattened buildings for 10 miles in every direction. Anyone within 14 miles would have suffered 3rd-degree burns from the thermal radiation. But the true horror would have come from the radioactive fallout. A massive plume of deadly radiation would have spread across the East Coast, carried by the wind like an invisible plague. Cities from North Carolina to New York could have been contaminated. Millions of Americans would have faced radiation sickness, cancer, death. And in the chaos and terror of that moment, with American cities burning from an American bomb, how would the Soviet Union have interpreted such devastation? Would they have believed it was an accident? Or would they have seen it as the opening move in World War III? The families in Goldsboro went to bed that night, never knowing how close they had come to annihilation. Children played in fields where hydrogen bombs had fallen. Farmers worked soil that had nearly been turned to radioactive glass. The second bomb remains buried to this day, too deep and dangerous to fully recover. The government bought the land, creating a permanent monument to humanity's brush with self-destruction. Parts of its nuclear core are still down there, 180 feet below a quiet North Carolina field, a buried reminder of our own mortality. This was not science fiction. This was not a movie. This was real life, where the difference between a normal Tuesday and the end of civilization came down to a single switch in a falling bomb. The incident led to a complete redesign of nuclear safety protocols. New switches, new procedures, new safeguards. But it also revealed something darker about the Cold War era. We had created weapons so powerful, so destructive, that even we could not fully control them. Major Tulloch and his surviving crew members returned to their families, carrying with them the weight of what they had almost unleashed. The 3 crew members who died were buried with military honors, their sacrifice preventing an even greater tragedy. Today, most people have never heard of the Goldsboro incident. It remains one of the closest calls in nuclear history, a moment when fate itself seemed to hold its breath. We tell ourselves we are safe, that such accidents cannot happen. But on January 24th, 1961, ordinary people living ordinary lives came within a single switch of learning just how fragile our world really is. Sometimes the most important moments in history are the ones that almost happened. Sometimes survival is not about what we do right, but about getting impossibly lucky when everything goes wrong. That is the lesson of Goldsboro, that our existence, our civilization, our very future can hang by the thinnest of threads. And sometimes, just sometimes, those threads hold.